So Matt, thank you so much for coming on Cash Chats. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, it's good to see you. You know this whole background thing.
Yeah.
You've gone very minimal.
Well, do you know what? I've had a bit of a nightmare. So I was but just behind me, if you're watching, if you're listening to this, you won't see this, but you can see a bit of a blue radiator cover there, which I bought. And
Nice.
I spray painted that in this room. And I
Oh,
covered a large
in
surface of the
room.
area, but not enough.
Yeah.
And it turned everything blue. I mean, everything, skirting boards, everything. So literally right now, I'm slightly high on carpet cleaner fumes because they've been in here beforehand. So everything's been taken out, and I've got no furniture. I've got lots of cushions around me to try and soften the noise a little bit. But yeah, so it's minimalist, but normally there's a little bit more
Yeah.
going on.
Right. Well, it's fine. I mean, I'm sure it says on the side of the can that you should use that in a well ventilated area, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you're not like a read the can kind of guy. You just prefer to just go for it. And
Well, I
just
just
like it's
thought,
dark blue, the room's white, what could possibly go wrong?
yeah. So the grey carpet went blue. It wasn't my finest moment.
Live and learn. Live and learn.
But it did actually be a start of a consumer journey as well, because obviously I started looking at my insurance to find out what cover I might have. You always got that accidental cover for spilling paint is maybe slightly different to spray painting your carpet blue.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where the fault lies. And if I'm honest, if I'm, with my loss adjuster hat on, Andy, I'm not quite sure how I would assess that. It
Yeah.
it might not be favorably, I'll be honest with you.
It's kind of like if this was Rogue Traders, I would be the
Yeah,
Rogue Trader telling
you
you
are
you
the
could.
road trade. We'd be filming you, but unfortunately, it is also your house. So there'd be nothing to say. There'd be nothing to see here,
Yeah.
basically, with your live citizens.
Well, I've not been very successful there, but you've done something very successful this week. Your book has come out,
Yeah,
which is,
it's
I mean, it's massive. It's packed. It's 410 pages.
I know. And do you know what? When we started out, I only looked at the contract again recently, and I was supposed to write less than half what I did. So in terms of value for money, I'd say that's like a buy one, get one free almost. And it just ended up being this. It's like I want to cover all these subjects. I don't want to cover them. I don't want it to be the definitive guide to each of these subjects because we go through, whether it's your house, whether it's cars, whether it's, buying and selling a house, supermarkets. Each one of those is a book in itself and more. You could write several books on each one of those. But what I wanted it to be was essential, the absolute bare essentials, what you need to have in your back pocket when you go to do one of these things, whether it's, buying your first home or buying a car, and just giving people the essentials they need, that if something comes out of the blue, it doesn't blindside them completely. And it feels like the sort of book that parents can give to kids, I think, so that they are equipped with just the basics and your rights going forward. That was really important.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that it's not just for people who don't know things. I mean, obviously, my job is to write about personal finance and consumer issues, but I wish I'd had this book when I bought my house 2 years ago.
Oh,
Because
well,
there's certain things. Like one of the things that really sort of resonated with me was that sense when you're talking to someone who's an expert or says they're an expert, and you know nothing about it. It's difficult if they say you need to get
yeah.
this done, you need to get that done. It's hard to argue, isn't it?
It is hard to argue, but at the end of the day, you can always take your money somewhere else. And I think more and more people that we trust as experts, and you do have to trust people on some level, those people are going to have to respond also to your needs and to what you want from the deal as well. And if you've got, for instance, a surveyor who says, I'm happy for you to join me while I do the survey. That's like a revolutionary idea. I don't know why, but if you pay 700, 800 quid for a survey, why shouldn't you be allowed to just go around with a surveyor and say, what does that mean? What does that look like? And just get, if they are the experts they claim to be, get the full benefit of the expertise for which you're paying. Whereas it's supposed to be some kind of great mystery. They go round the house. Well, we won't lift up any carpets and we won't go in the loft. Just even before I paid the money, you've told me the things you're not going to do. Well, can you just do them? Can you just Like while we're on, we'll have an informal chat. I promise I won't hold you to it, but these are things which are going to be so influential when I'm spending hundreds of thousands of pounds, the biggest purchase I'll make in my life. Please just help me out, and then you'll be worth the hundreds of pounds I'm paying for the survey.
Yeah, what I wish had happened if I knew this in advance was if I'd asked for an electrical survey as well, which apparently is only sort of 40, 50 quid. It's not much money in addition to the hundreds that you're paying on that survey. If I'd got that, that would have saved me 8 grand because the
Really,
entire
that
house,
was the clincher.
the whole
Needed
house needs to be
rewiring.
rewired. Yeah, when the work had already started, so we weren't even really in a position to get loads of quotes in and loads of people to come in and sort of, because it needed to be done now. So, but if I'd had your book, I could have sort of that section in particular would have been so useful to me. And what I really like about it is that you peppered throughout it some of those rogue traders and watchdog examples, which those hopefully they're the worst case scenario. They're not things that are going to happen to people, but it brings a little bit color to those examples where people are kind of, but that doesn't really happen, or I mean it does because you were there with a hidden camera.
Yeah, I think it is that bit in the moment where, when you invite somebody into your home, they sort of split the difference between someone you're paying and a guest. And you're stuck in that middle ground of thinking, where am I? Is this somebody that I'm paying and therefore I can tell them what to do? Or is it someone I really need? And if they go away, I'm going to have to find another one and it's going to be really hard to do. And so you find yourself somewhere in the middle and not quite sure which camp to jump into. You're making them a cup of tea on one hand. On the other hand, you're pretending you know what you talk about. And I think that's the moment where you need to just be able to go, can we just, before we go any further, can we just set the ground rules for what we're doing here? This is what I need. I need an electrical survey. I need someone to check the gas to make sure everything's safe. So I need a proper gas safety certificate. And I'm going to need to walk around the house with you. And can you tell me why there are things growing out of the guttering? Those sorts of things. If you've got those before you head in as the rules of engagement, then there's just a couple fewer things, from your experience, a couple fewer things to worry about at the other end of when you actually get the document in your hands.
Yeah, and if you're someone who's like, you're pretty comfortable, you've bought a house recently, you've gone through that process, you know stuff about the trade, you might not know about your consumer rights, Section 75, you might not know about pensions or scams and stuff. So I really I think it's that kind of handbook to have that you can dip into. You can read it cover to cover, or you can just go, right, I'm going to take this section today and sort of get those basics, those nuts and bolts to prepare me.
I think we've all got, blind spots. I think we've all got things we can't know about because nobody can know everything about everything. And I think whereas, people will generally go through and go, yeah, I knew that. There will be a couple of bits where they go, yeah, okay, I knew about my credit card and Section 75, but they might go, oh, I didn't know about the consumer contract regulations and the fact, what a cooling off period looks like and why it's different from goods than it is for services. And that stuff, hopefully, there'll be something in there that fills a few gaps for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get on to the main topic today, I just want to say that, so in my Reader's Digest column, I used to have a section which was called My Mum's Money. And I used to talk about the things that she was doing right now in terms of her finances and consumer things, because she was a big influence on me. She's probably why I do what I do today. And I noticed that throughout the book, your mum pops up quite a few times in there as well. Was that the same for you? Was she a kind of big reason why you're been doing Rogue Traders and Watchdog for the last sort of 23 years?
I mean, not just metaphorically, not just in terms of my upbringing and the influence she had on me there, and my dad as well, but to in a different way. With my mum, it was literally the start of my Watchdog career because she had a problem with her tumble dryer, and then she needed a new one, but there was a fabric conditioner on a sheet called Bounce, and none of the manufacturers recommended using it, and it just felt like a story. So I wrote to Watchdog with it, and they went, "Yeah, come and film it." And that was the beginning of 23 years ago that I was on Watchdog. So in both senses, yeah, she's the reason why I do it, and she's part of the reason I got the job in the first place.
God, it's amazing. You don't get that kind of break nowadays, do you?
No, it just doesn't happen like that.
Right place, right time, and it's done wonders.
Yeah, you just grab the opportunities. That's the key. Yeah.
Right. So what I thought would be really nice to talk to you about on today's episode are our kind of consumer pet hates, the things that really get our blood boiling, the things that really, really annoy us. I've got a couple, but I mean, what are the things that for you, like number one, what is the thing that you're like, why?
Okay, so I'm a big music fan,
Yeah.
and so I'm 50 years old now. When I first started going to gigs, there was only one way to do that, and that was actually two ways. To be fair, two ways. The first one was that you went to the venue, and for some reason back in those days, venues started selling tickets at like 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So you knew the gig was like 6 weeks away. You were supposed to be at school. I don't know what they were thinking. Like it's like teenagers that go to gigs, right?
Yeah.
And so you would have to queue outside you basically had to bunk off to go and get tickets. Now, I'm not saying that's a great, way of doing things, but it had this advantage. If you missed out, that was it. You pretty much knew, short of approaching some really dodgy guy outside the venue at the gig itself, your chance of getting a ticket was zero at that point. And there was a certainty about that. What we have now is secondary ticket selling. And I have to say, I think that is such a massive step backwards from standing outside venues and getting wet and paying face value for those tickets and knowing that £5 got you into the gig. What we have now is face values, which not face values, but ticket values, which have been multiplied so far beyond what is needed by the artist to make that gig happen that it makes a mockery of going to see live music, really, because that money doesn't make it back to the artist. And that's the other thing about it. It's not just I shouldn't be paying this much money. It's that this money makes it to someone who probably speculated on buying a number of these tickets, has this piece of software that clicks 1,000 times a second, and therefore they gain this advantage over people that were prepared to possibly bunk off school, stand in the queue, get wet because they really loved the band. And I think that's one of my main consumer gripes. And actually the way that is done is being replicated across the consumer world, that you have people who can use their digital advantage, technological advantage, without the desire and the passion to experience that moment, and then speculatively, buy up thousands and thousands of this product that will make a difference to people's lives. If you go and see Bob Dylan, that shouldn't be in the hands of people that just profiteer. It should be in the hands of Bob Dylan and his group of people, his management that are looking to make this incredible experience happen. So there you go. I think that is a massive step backwards. And what if there were a way to regulate that, like just put a cap, I think, on face value, say you can't charge more than 10% above face value for a gig ticket anywhere in the UK, and find a way to enforce that. I think that would make our cultural life so much richer, because the money would get back to artists and not be floating around with organisations and people that really don't deserve it.
And right now as well, obviously it's practically impossible for proper live music to happen in the way that we're used to. Those artists really struggling. So more now than ever, if there is a return at any point soon to proper live music, they need that money, they need that cash. And if it's being diverted, like you say, it's going to be less and less of these acts able to survive and continue providing us with that entertainment, which is so vital. And I'm the same as you. I'm a big gig fan, and I always used to, after the kind of like queuing at the venue or going to HMV to buy the tickets, when it started going online, I had a kind of system. I was like, right, I'd have a couple of computers open and a few open at once, and I'll try and do this just to get in there, set the alarm, pre-sale, all that kind of stuff. But more recently, it's been practically impossible. It's like 30 seconds and something is sold out.
It's not necessarily like really big gigs.
No,
it doesn't seem to be, like Fleetwood Mac reforming or, Led Zeppelin reforming. It's not even those once in a lifetime gigs. It seems like everything, like tours, multi-date tours where there should be availability, it's gone within seconds. And I don't even think it's necessarily an indicator of the popularity of the artist. I just think it seems to be somebody's algorithm works really, really well. And they know if you restrict that supply, then you can push the price up and someone will pay it because they want that feeling, they want that live experience. And that does feel wrong,
Years ago, well, God, when was it? Must have been 2006, I want to say. My friend and I set up a MySpace page called the
That's how
Indie
long ago it
Exchange.
was.
Yeah, Indie Exchange. And it was a face-to-face, like face value swap. If you couldn't go to a gig or you had a spare ticket, you'd go on, and the idea was you could, swap it with someone else. But I think we were maybe a little bit ahead of our time, and we didn't really have
there are,
tech.
it's easy for me to say secondary ticket sites. Okay, we know the names we're talking about, and I don't want to land you in trouble by mentioning.
Oh, they're awful. I hate them. I hate them all. Yeah.
But then there are those who are, rebel scum who are trying to who are trying to fight the good fight and say, look, here is what those purport to be, which is a marketplace between fans where we will keep the price down and we keep, that ridiculous multiplier to a bare minimum, keep it face value or near to that. And, we should be trying to use those if we have tickets to exchange, I think, rather than, the other sites we don't dare to mention.
Yeah, I've just checked.
It's like Voldemort, isn't it? We can't say it.
Well, I think we could say. I mean, we're saying it's StubHub recently they've had some stuff go against them to try and make them change things, haven't they? Viagogo are amongst the worst. Others have disappeared. They've the business has gone. But one of the good ones, which I have used in the past, I assume it's still going all right, is Twickets.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I've heard of as well.
Yeah, and there was one called Scarlett Mist, which was a website years ago. I'm not sure if they're still going, but that was that original kind of put in a bullet ball. I've got a spare ticket. Anyone want to give me face value?
And I also think, to be honest, it does dissuade fans from the bigger events. And if you want to go and see live music, just go and look at things like We Got Tickets, where it's going to come directly from the person who's running the event there. And these are going to be smaller things. There's going to be lower demand, but it's going to be real. And I think, especially as we're coming back into live music, these smaller events, I think, are going to have so much impact because they're going to feel intimate.
Really are.
You might only have 70 or 80 people at an event where there would have been 300 or 400 before. So, it's going to feel special. You're going to have a special link to the artist, and the artists are going to be grateful because actually just getting the chance to perform again and be in front of a group of people is going to be something they've been desperate for as well.
Yeah, and you get that additional consumer rights, don't you? If for some reason they're rescheduled, you'll be able to get that ticket changed, you'll be able to get the refund, whatever it is, which you don't necessarily get with those third-party sites. Yeah. What's next? What's the next pet hate?
Auto-renewals. So auto-renewals, not just auto-renewals, because, who really wants to have to go out there and shop again for things that may be marginal costs like 20 or 30 quid. But one of the ones that really bugs me is recovery breakdown. And again, I'm not going to mention any names, but I was with a certain recovery breakdown company since 1989. Right. So that's loyalty. That's loyalty. I'm a proper loyal customer. And then it turns out that I am being absolutely rinsed every year for my renewal compared to what the same services would cost for someone who's a new customer. And that is not the way it should work. That makes me really cross because that loyalty means something to me. It actually says, I believe in your service, and, I might even tell other people about it. And you are charging me for my loyalty. I can't understand why a company would do that. And the worst bit is you challenge them and you say, look, hold on, if I'm a new customer coming to you, you're charging me. I mean, it was like half as much.
That's ridiculous.
For the same service. And they go, oh, well, we'll reduce it by 70 quid, which was a fraction of what I was paying. It was like, no, you don't get this. I'm going and I'm telling everybody about what's just happened to me, because there will be other people who are auto-renewing your service and are being absolutely taken to the cleaners for it. And I think it's a terrible practice, and I think it's probably more widespread than we realise. But certainly in vehicle recovery, breakdown recovery services, they need to wake up to that, because it feels like it's been going on for a long time. And that's no way to repay loyal customers.
No, so it's really not, is it? I mean, insurance is another one where they will absolutely, hope you don't check. And I know that they try and install new legislation where they have to kind of put in, well, this is what you were paying last year, just so you can see that difference. But the more and more we go paperless, the less people actually read the stuff. Like in terms of the environment, I'm a big fan of us going paperless. But if it means we don't see these messages, these things that try and think twice about what's going on, particularly those auto renewals, it's not always a good thing.
I just want to, there should be a button you can click and says, well, there probably is. I need to look. I need to look more closely. Just say, don't auto renew.
Yeah.
Let me know about it, okay, and just let it lapse. Or the other thing that I've started to do is flip flop. So I'll just every year I'll change.
Yeah.
So I'll change. It's a pain, it is a pain to have to do that, and you flip, and then you get sent to the retention department, which was also on my list. The retention department for anything is like, just why didn't you offer me that in the first place? Just don't let me threaten to leave. It's like the terrible relationship breakdown, when you go, I'm going. It's childish. Just offer me the good deal in the first place. But of course, otherwise retention departments wouldn't exist, would they? That, you would be auto renewing with a discount or the same price as you did last year. And just that whole business model, I think, is exploitative and abusive, really. When you want it, how much money does it take to get a new customer? Surely keeping one, by not being silly like that, they obviously know that we just don't pay attention to the renewals when they come in and what the new price will be. We just let it happen. But yeah, flip-flopping, I think, is a great way to do it. It's like, I'm with this recovery service this year, and then when renewal comes around, I'll swap and I'll do the same thing on and off, and keep that sub as low as it possibly can be.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, where the people who are savvy, people like you and I, people like a lot of the people who are listening to this and watching Watchdog, they're doing this, they're making these big savings, but unfortunately the people who are losing out are the ones who sometimes they just don't care, they're too busy or whatever it is, but some people who just don't know about stuff. And often it's people who don't have as much money who are being penalised, and they're paying these really sky high stuff, whether it's your broadband, your insurance, your car stuff, they're paying more and we're benefiting from the savings. So I do feel bad about that as well. So maybe the fairer thing, like you say, is, right, here's a fair price. This is what it costs, and this is what everyone's going to pay. And maybe some of us will pay a little bit more because.
But we're moving further away from that. We're moving further away from transparency and pricing transparency. I mean, the idea that within a few years we're going to walk into supermarkets and we're going to see, well, LCD or LED prices or little screens underneath each item. And that could change not based on just on what's happening. It's like bread is more expensive today, so you will pay slightly more. It's going to be based on who you are. The idea that you go in and they know you love coffee. They know you're a big coffee. So you're going to get the coffee. There's a higher price on that. Somebody else comes in. For them, it's either a luxury purchase or something they're doing because relatives are coming around who like coffee. For them, the price will be low to draw them in. And that kind of, the idea that there is a price for something which is based on what it's worth plus profit, that we're losing a sense of that kind of transparency. And that, I don't know if it's overstating it. It feels a little bit George Orwell to me.
It does, doesn't it?
Do you know what I mean?
It's a Black Mirror episode, or it's really kind of all this stuff like smart speakers. I've got some, I know you have as well. They're great and we like these things and we enjoy them, but then what's going on in the background? You say something and then an advert pops up on a browser.
It's the telespeaker. It's the telespeaker. What is that? What it's called? I can't remember what it's called from 1984.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
it genuinely is. It's anticipating my needs. Okay, wonderful. When you're creating a Spotify playlist for me or something like that, a Genius list or something like that, don't have a problem with that at all. But the way ads now reinforce, what I was talking about, it feels like that's really spooky and not great at all. And also, if it starts to limit my choice or shape pricing around my preferences or what I might have indicated in the past, it's really working against me because I need to be able to see the price of something, and it needs to be the same price for me as it is for you.
Yeah.
You know, that may feel like an old-fashioned thing, but we fought for years against dodgy grocers who would be able to tip the scales and would know when a rich customer was coming in, so they could like charge them slightly more. We fought for years against that, and that's exactly what legislation and our consumer rights are there to defend against. The fact that we can, you know, prices can be jigged individually, I think is really worrying, and something that needs proper legislation to anticipate rather than wait till it's here.
Well, I mean, you already can. They know what browser you're using, so potentially you could be looking at flights on a Mac, and you could be looking at it on a PC, and they could go, they've got a Mac, they've got a little bit more cashed, they're a bit more flush, they can pay a little bit more, and it does happen. These sites can do it just based on your browser, your device, all this stuff. So, God, scary stuff there.
I'm waiting. As soon as we've done this podcast goes out, I'm going to get so many adverts for guitars. And it's just going to be Fenders. It's just going to be Fenders. That's all it's going to be.
Yeah, it's analysed the picture on the back. It can see exactly what's there.
It knows who I am.
Headphones and guitars. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
I know we're getting short on time. I don't know whether there's any more you want to jump out with, or any sort of maybe some good ones, things that you really love. Happy with either?
Oh my God, what do I love? I love good landlords. I love good landlords. I think it's easy to spin this the other way. All right. It's easy to say, oh, you know, I think the traditional media view of the housing market, the property market, and particularly the rental market, is that there are, you know, good tenants and there are bad landlords. And it really doesn't work that way. I've done so much on housing over the past sort of 5 or 6 years, and I have to say it the other way around. I love good landlords that appreciate what a good tenant can give them. And when that relationship works well, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think if you imagine every housing situation, every rental situation, trying to write legislation that protects both sides all of the time, I think is nigh on impossible. So what you actually need is a relationship between two people. They don't have to be friends, landlord and tenant, but they have to be mutually responsible and tolerant. And if someone's having a bad day or having a bad week with the rent, or somebody can't fix something straight away, understand, bit of forbearance, and just say, yeah, but it has to be done. So I think good landlords and good tenants are a marvelous thing. But I've seen too many times when it goes the wrong way. And I think coming up now to this, you know, we've had the eviction notices pushed back by another month. I think that's a month during which we've got an opportunity to do something about that relationship. And for instance, we have Section 21 evictions, so-called no-fault evictions. There was supposed to be a ban on those, and I don't know, during COVID that seems to have been pushed to one side. I think it's law in Scotland, but I'm not sure it is in England. It's something we need to look at, because, you know, renters are not just individuals, professionals, you know, singles on their own. We've got families who need a stable platform from which to launch education and employment and relationships and family and food and all the good stuff, health, you know, all of that is dependent upon a safe, secure place to live. So being able to chuck people out without a really good reason, you know, fairly summarily over a 6 month, with just 6 months of peace of mind, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like enough to me.
No, and obviously, and we know there's going to be a huge number of job losses coming up. We've already seen so many, haven't we? There are going to be many more. Yeah. And the knock-on effect, we know that if people lose their income, they're not far away potentially from homelessness. So, yeah, it's going to be over the coming months and years, it's going to be a big problem. And landlords, as you say, they have a big role to play in helping people in those situations. But at the same time, you're right. You've got to think about landlords as well, their income. So there's got to be in a way that protects everyone in a fair way.
I think, you know, what I say in the book, and this goes for every marketplace, every transaction, is that the more you can get away from that idea of them and us and say, look, there's the customer and there's the provider. Landlords are customers as well. They'll have mortgage providers, you know, that they need to get good service from them. So they are trying to make their deal work as well. And that sense of empathy when you're going into any situation, whether it's a complaint or a deal, you have to try and understand what the other person needs to get from the relationship, and really make sure that you service that in some way, that you're saying, listen, you need a good tenant, you need your rent paid. That's me. Okay, I'm going to look after the property. I'm going to make sure your investment in the property it isn't wasted. What I need from you is this. And just on that basis of sort of mutual respect, I think is a good place to start with any transaction.
Absolutely. Matt, thank you so much. Really, really, really great to have you on the show. So the book is Watchdog, the Consumer Survival Guide.
I've got one here.
Let's have a look.
Just visual recognition is very important. Is that round the wrong way?
No, that's perfect.
Is it round the right way for you?
It's the right way for me, yeah.
It's bright yellow. You can't miss it, even in the dark.
And it's what, $16.99 in all bookshops and online as well.
Yeah, Hive is a very good place to go and buy your books, because it supports local bookshops, which at the moment probably in as much need as they've ever been. So yeah, check out Hive.
Lovely, and I'll link to that in the notes as well, so people can check that out there. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure, Andy. You take care, mate. Don't go spray painting anything.
No, I have learnt my lesson. Yeah, absolutely. Cheers, Matt.
Nice to meet you, mate.
And here are a couple more videos you might find interesting.